Hey, I'm Nate, your masculinity and mindset coach here in our weekly coaching sessions. We've got some awesome men in the room with us as well. Today, I'm going to be answering one of the questions posted in the Sovereign Brotherhood Community on Skool. The question is, do women look up to you? Do you find yourself lacking confidence around women? Are you able to lead others looking towards you, looking to see you elevate? What do you need to work on to be at your 100%? So let's break this question down a little bit. Do women look up to you? This is a really, 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 really important point. Women in their natural sexual selection process are hypergamous. They always want to look up to a man. The moment that they see a man is not their best option, the moment that they believe that there's a better option that exists, then it starts the process of them starting to doubt their decision or their choice. And unfortunately, you could have done a lot of good things as a man in a woman's life, but if you start to present yourself in a way which is below her, you start to get, as you become more invested in her, more insecure, this will have the effect of pushing her away. Ironically, this is where some men with false frames do better than men with obviously no frame, because they might be detached. They may not be emotionally invested. And for women, or at least some women, that's a more of a preference than to a guy who's very heavily invested and willing to do and be anything that the woman wants. So having a woman look up to you in a empowering way, in a healthy way, can happen when you commit to developing authentic masculine frame, when you become a high value man. Now, the reason that a woman is motivated this way is because it gives her the highest chance of her safety, of her being provided for, and of the offspring or children being taken care of as well. So they want to ideally be with the king of the tribe. So things that will cause a woman to look up to you is basically she respects you. She sees you in a pre-qualified way that other women find you attractive. That's a huge thing for women. She sees or admires you as holding status inside a community amongst other men. She sees that you're an effective leader, that you're going in and that you've got a life path, a purpose, a direction that she could see herself being part of, that she would see a brighter future for herself if she was to be aligned with you. Now, as I kind of alluded to at the start of this intro, that quickly fades away. It can happen in an instant. The moment that she has like an ick moment, meaning if you lower your status in front of her or you lower her status in front of others, that's an instant ick moment. So if she starts to perceive a collective displeasure towards you, it's a rare woman that would still be loyal, because it's going to trigger her, own desire to have a positive reflection on her based around the man that she's aligned with. She will lose respect for you if you start to orientate around her and place her above you, where you start to follow her leadership, where you start to be conforming and compliant to all of her requests. When you don't have a strong sense of center and know what you want, and you start to conform continuously to what she wants, this will cause a woman to look down to you because you're placing her above you. So, so important. Some men that are not so confident in their own value will start to place a woman above themselves. They'll start to try to compensate for their own insecurity. When they start to see a woman's really incredible or amazing, they go from, a sort of casual indifference or curiosity to being heavily invested and attached very quickly when they perceive that this woman is out of their league, is rare to the extent that they don't deserve that reflection, And so they will subconsciously sabotage and push that woman away. And this is why there needs to be a deep inner work that takes place. Because a high value man that holds himself in high esteem will expect to have a high value woman. He'll just expect it. A personal anecdote, something that I found very interesting in my journey. When I was growing up, this would have been maybe one of my first long-term girlfriends. That, I was a guy who originally didn't have a lot of confidence, grew up in a small country town, was a bit of a social outcast. And I remember went to university and having very little social experience. All of a sudden, I was captain of their drinking team. I was captain of this, organizing the social events. I was larger than life kind of guy. I ended up being with this at the time, and she was a very attractive woman certainly by my standards, but maybe by almost any person's standard. She was an attractive woman. And I would, at that time, she was definitely, I would say, above my previous experience. And, I, at that time, didn't have the self-awareness, didn't have a great deal of self-love, and somehow came across funny with this woman and somehow managed to end up with her. It gave me a boost of confidence that then made it safe for me to think, oh, I deserve to be with an attractive woman. Soon, I started to gain, more and more confidence as I built myself into a high value man. This is just the first time I was with a really attractive woman, but I survived the experience. We were together for maybe a year or something like that. And I remember being so attached at the end of it all, where she said she didn't want to be with me anymore, obviously because I ended up becoming conforming to her in some ways. But it set a precedent for me. And then I started to, at some stage, learn or decide to craft myself into what I perceive would be a high value man. Meaning, I started to work out. I started to really take my business seriously. Started my own business. I was working on all these other different, and I was studying pickup artistry at the time as well. So, I learned how to communicate better, how to text message better. I learned how to salsa dance. I did all this sort of stuff. And soon I had a lot of success in attracting women, and very attractive women as a standard. So confidence is something, what I'm conveying here is confidence is something that happens when you start to have experience of success, when what you do starts to have a positive result. And I told you, like, I did not start off with confidence. I could not even smile in front of a mirror. Confidence is something that can be built over time. And soon, when you start to really take care of yourself and you start to have a strategy of building yourself into a high value man, you don't take the hits so personally, because you'll start to relate it as just part of growing into a higher value person. You're like, oh, well, not every woman's going to be attracted to me. And because you've got a sufficient evidence that there are women that are attracted to you, it's not such a big deal. And you start to have this position of abundance. And that's how you start to get, again, what I mentioned at the start, where women see you're comfortable around other women. Part of them might be jealous. Part of them might have attraction towards you. They're certainly going to have more interest in you than the man in the corner of the room that doesn't have any other interest around women, or any other interest from other women. But it's going to be something where also how you are comfortable being with attractive women. Whether or not you become all clammed up and you can't communicate when you're around a really attractive woman. It's because in some subconscious level, you're placing her above you. You're saying that you don't deserve her. You're saying that, you risk losing her even before you know her, even before you've assessed whether or not she's complementary to your life. And so here's a secret ingredient in that. When you start to one, build yourself up in high esteem through your actions, when you start to have purpose and start living that, you will start to evaluate whether a woman brings a complementary nature to your path and purpose, or whether she's destructive and chaotic to it. When you don't have a path and purpose, you're likely to allow or invite her chaos into your life. And especially if you have self-sabotage patterns, it's one way that men prevent themselves from becoming highly successful. They choose a woman who's chaotic and destructive to their trajectory in life, rather than choose a woman who's highly complementary and constructive, because a woman can amplify your constructive tendencies, or she can amplify your destructive tendencies. One of my tipping points was when I started to realize that I did worse off with the women that I was choosing, meaning I was becoming less successful based on the women I had been choosing, which were, attractive women, but not necessarily constructive and loyal to my path and purpose. And so this is a super important point, and why men need to value themselves and value their seed above their conquest. Because if you're seeking value through conquest of women, you're in denial of your own value, and you're likely to choose women that are not complementary to your value. If you choose women, if you value yourself and you value your trajectory, and you won't tolerate women destructive to that path, you're more likely to be selective and more likely to then choose women who are complementary to that path. So the subconscious component of that is really important. The self-esteem part of that, where you feel you've earned your own self-confidence and self-esteem, is very important. And it's likely, like in most parts of masculine development, that you'll have to have met and experienced discomfort multiple times until you're okay with it. A huge part of the thing, aside from salsa dancing, because you're constantly walking up to women and asking them to dance and such, was my sales experience. So I went door to door to cafes to build my first beverage company. And I went from being so scared of rejection that I wouldn't walk into a cafe unless I thought the owner somehow looked like they were in a good mood. Really, I would avoid walking into shops. And of course, they probably saw that and like, he's a weird guy, not afraid to walk into the cafe. And then I'd walk in and I'd fumble my words, and then I'd be rejected, and then I'd survive it because I kept doing it because it was a must, because I wanted my business to succeed. That continual walking in, and I've probably walked in and out of more than the 3,000, 4,000 coffee shops in that time. Eventually, I became very good at walking into a cafe, asserting my presence, being, confident in leading the conversation towards the outcome, which would have been, a process, a system, leading the conversation towards doing a tasting of my products and eventually selling. A similar thing happens with women. There's a process to it, that you have the confidence to approach, you have, some sort of opener, you're able to create attention, tension meaning sexual attraction, and through laughter, through play, through pre-qualification, through, jest, this cocky, funny kind of attitude, but it's not because it's a performance. This is a super important point. I arrived at that place not because it was a performance, but because I had crafted myself into a high value man, and then learning how to communicate effectively from that place of genuinely holding yourself as a high value man. There is a version of performative masculinity, which is the false frame, where you're doing it for validation, and it's coming from a place of insecurity. That will still have some results, but it's unlikely going to allow you to maintain a relationship with a truly high value woman. You might have her interest initially, but she's still going to spot that you're insecure underneath in its performance. And this is where a lot of pickup artists fall short. One of my inspirations at the time was a guy called Eben Pagan, who talked about, he had Mastery with Women in Dating, one of his programs. And he talked about the concept of becoming a high value man. It was at that point that I really understood, oh, well, I can build myself into a high value man. I can build myself in the way that I dress, in the way that I work out, the way that I cultivate my physical presence, the way that I project myself through my posture, through the way that I can talk, become this more assertive, dominant presence that's not insecure, shying away, weak, and avoiding being seen. I'm not highly, how would you say, social, even though I can obviously enjoy conversations. I tend to be the person who likes to talk to one person, but I am very comfortable being the center of attention at the same time if it comes to dancing and that sort of stuff. So this, you'll have your own way that you like to express yourself naturally. You don't have to become someone else. You just bring out the elements of yourself that are your expression, your unique, aligned self. But it's coming from a position of holding yourself in a high esteem, holding yourself and building up your status, just that you earn, which is really another way of saying the respect that you earn through your actions and words that are in alignment to the greater path that you're creating for yourself, which creates well-being for yourself and others. So when you start to become a positive contributor to any environment that you go into, when people start to just feel good around you, you will start to build this social rapport, this social goodwill of sorts, where you start to become attractive, more and more magnetic and attractive. See, a man who's insecure in those social settings and environments will tend to make him, because he feels awkward, he'll start to make those people around him feel awkward. And this is why self-acceptance is a huge part of this self-awareness, accepting the parts of yourself that you try to reject, avoid, deny, are a huge part. It's not just about focusing on the good parts, because you won't have strong, stable foundations in the way that you're expressing yourself. You'll flip-flop between, confidence then being eroded very quickly to lacking self-confidence, because what's in your shadow hasn't been integrated now, accepted, transmuted into self-acceptance. This also comes into leadership. People want to be led to a greater, more enjoyable experience of well-being, of happiness, of fulfillment. If your presence doesn't create that in some way, then they're less likely to want to spend time around you, unless they have some desire to experience more suffering, which some people do temporarily. You can be recruited for roles in that way. But as a general rule, people will orientate around you because they respect you, in the same way that a woman needs to respect you to be attracted to you. When you start to have the respect of many, you start to have a lot more energy directed towards you. And when the respect is not taken with hubris, it's not feeding your ego, but it's redirected back in raising up the well-being of the people around you, it becomes this loop where people focus their energy at you, and then you feed it back to them and help lift them as they are lifting you. And this is kind of the role of this masculine leadership. You don't absorb all this energy just to benefit yourself, because it's one directional and it won't last. It's like you elevate yourself into a man of higher esteem and respect and status, but then you raise the people with you that are focusing their energy at you, and that's how you become an effective and honorable leader. It's how you make use of your power that you earn. It's a super important part. So they are looking to you also to continuously be on that path of growth and ascension. People want this idea that when they are aligning with you, they're in safe hands. There's a high trajectory that's not going to burn out quickly. You notice that again, women will, if you're at this is unfortunate part, and I'm not saying this is all women, but it is prevalent. I see this in some of the men that I'm coaching. There'll be a time in your life when things are going well, and then you'll have some sort of either midlife crisis, you'll have some sort of event, whether it's, you get sacked from work, a business fails, something happens, and then you take a hit to your confidence. Often it's because you're not completely solid, or you have attachments, and it's part of your growth path. But then you cease to become the magnetic, attractive person that woman was attracted to when she met you. And then she starts to lose respect for you, because she can no longer see that you're above her, leading her in a direction that she wants to experience more of. And so therefore that's an instant repulsion when a man then, from his place of insecurity or weakness, when he's having a weak moment, that he then becomes compliant, submissive, apologetic, where he no longer has confidence in his path, in himself. And you can see then that it's at his low moment that often women leave men. And often those men will then bounce back, and because he's going through an identity dissolution phase. Maybe he built part of his identity on weak foundations. It has to come back to that weak foundation to be transmuted and seen, and then built into a stronger foundation. Some women may stay with that guy, but it's not as common, in my observation, in Western indoctrinated societies. It's so easy to swipe right, swipe left kind of thing. It's like next, and that's just why there's so much separation and so much this a lack of loyalty and full commitment, unfortunately, with some society right now. And so this is why it's really important to become a super high value man that is the best pick of the bunch in your community, in your area, or is the best man you can be. You'll certainly increase your chances of becoming, magnetic to women, and you're more likely to choose the pick of the bunch when it comes to a loyal, constructive woman. So building yourself into a high value man gives, and having that as a lifestyle where you don't just, oh, I've made it now, I'm going to switch off from life. No, you construct your life so you're constantly reinforcing your frame. You're constantly becoming a better man, a better father, a better contributor to your community, to your family, to society. And that's how I believe that you're in this, you become a man of legacy, a man whose memory is passed around in very constructive and positive ways. So it's important, if you're having one of those down moments, to actually not seek and reach for the feminine, but to come to just to acknowledge, yes, I'm going through a pain point right now. And I'm committed to my own strength. And you come back to yourself, you elevate yourself, you get the discipline practices, and you build yourself up again. Now, on that note, I don't know if I broke my ribs a second time, but I injured myself just going to my last Sovereign Warrior retreat. And it meant that I couldn't work out in the same intensity that I had been. And I noticed that although I was still maintaining practices, I relaxed them a little bit. And I noticed as soon as I did that, I wasn't as sharp as I am again now, becoming so. I started getting up at like 5:30 a.m. or, 5:45, as opposed to back to 4:45 a.m. or 4:50 a.m. And I've noticed that the moment I brought back to those stronger boundaries, and this is for myself, I'm not saying it's for every man, I realized I'm at a more optimal level. When I started adding back in my breath work in the mornings, I started reading my prayers again, because I started to have less time. I started to cut some things out. I was still doing what I could at the gym and things like that, but it's like this standard that I'm holding myself into that's constantly leaning into my edge, where I feel this continual growth edge, I feel is so important. And you tend to, instead of the world encroaching and this sense of, dealing with more and more stuff, when you're at your edge, you meet that and it doesn't weigh on you. You just kind of like shake it off. When you start to feel weighed down on it, it requires you to grow to surpass the weight that's being pressed on you. And it's not about avoiding the sensations, it's about meeting the sensations and transmuting the sensations of whatever it is that's being pressed on you. So this is why what most men do is, when they start to feel circumstances of life, not entirely, because there's cycles and seasons. It goes from summer to spring to autumn, winter. When you're in winter, when things aren't happening as easier, then there's a tendency for some men to start to feel weighed on by life. And because they don't have the rituals, the self-care practices to fall back on, it starts to accumulate. They start to slow down. Next thing you know, they're at a standstill. Next thing you know, their woman's frustrated at them, and they're really expressing, sometimes not in most constructive ways, that they don't feel that you're safe to follow right now. They don't feel the strength of your leadership. And this is where we need brothers. This is when we need to lift each other up. But it's also why we need to not let that deceleration process happen in a way where we start to feel disempowered. We've got to maintain, even when we're not able to be at 100% because of injury or some other reason, is to still have self-care practices that maintain us, but also to look at the subconscious reasons why we might even manifest or create one of those injuries or something like that in the first place. It could be, just as I mentioned, we're at a transitionary phase where we're growing from one identity into the next, which requires a dissolution of self. And even in those times, they can be made very brief when we're surrounded by men and we have our rituals that hold us at our highest expression and standards. And we really articulate and fine tune the behaviors which hold us and keep us at our best by meeting our physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental needs in a consistent way in a daily practice. And so the next part would be, as I'm reflecting on this, just know we're choosing the experience. And this is I've been started reading a book about existential kink. And one of the things was like things that I've already heard before, but I just reflected back as like, I was feeling some sort of pain in my heart. And it's like the pain of some sort of struggle, emotional struggle. I'm like, that's interesting. Like a lot of my life has been a fight in some way. And then the premise is that we're choosing it in some ways. So enjoy it. And I'm like, maybe I resist the struggle sometimes by dominating it. Maybe there's a way that I can embrace it, that I could even enjoy it. so that I wasn't trying to cancel it. I was embracing it. So this has been, one of the things that I'm working on now is, in addition to resolving the origins of a lot of traumas and things like that, which is something obviously those of you who experience my coaching is a big part of what I do, and somatic work I do at my retreats. It's more like the awareness that there's always going to be something that you might want to experience different, but we can either reject it or dismiss it, even the uncomfortable moments, or we can find acceptance or even pleasure in what's uncomfortable, and even the struggle, and in even the pain or things like that. So fear is like one step away from excitement, just depending on whether or not we feel it's something that's enjoyable, whether we associate a positive experience or a negative one. If you think about rides you go on for like roller coasters and stuff like that, most of the time in fear, but you come back and you're safe and it's exciting and it's enjoyable. It's because there's an association of maybe a dopamine rush or an adrenaline rush, that comes with those things because of the association of the mind with that event that has challenged you. So that would be my invitation: is first recognizing that repeating patterns that have shown up in your life that have been painful, acknowledge them, but then acknowledge you've been choosing them, and then choose to feel not only acceptance, but an enjoyment of that. Like maybe there's a deeper reason, because the more that you avoid the things that you're avoiding, the pain, the more that they have power over you, or the more that there's a momentum that they gain because you're unwilling to actually embrace those aspects of yourself. So I bring this up because the subconscious resolution are a big part of what makes you a strong man. What is that that's in our subconscious that's making us weak, that's causing us to feel loss, that's causing us to feel rejection, that's causing us to feel pain in attachment to, in this case, women in our lives? What are the trigger points? And you can either fight the reflection or you can embrace them. And part of getting that strong frame is when you're not easily triggered anymore, because you're willing to meet and face real time the things that come up in you. And this I think, is a really, really important point, because most women don't have that ability to regulate in that moment. They actually look to the men who can experience chaos and then also choose to bring order in the middle of that. This is part of what I'm talking about. Part of becoming a framed man, a high value man, is a man who brings order to chaos, a man who's respected for his ability to bring order and harmony and alignment to environments through his leadership. This is a big part of what men and women look up to. And a high value man is a man who's resourceful, a man who has clarity, a man who has focus, a man who makes quick and congruous or congruent decisions. That's what builds him into a high value man. And that comes from his own internal alignment, his own internal order, his own discipline, his own esteem, which, as I mentioned before, creates the well-being within himself and then starts to ripple out towards the people around him. So I'm going to open this up to the wider group and see. I want to keep recording this stage because last time there's amazing questions and we were able to provide some answers to some of the things here. So I encourage you to come forward from what I just shared with you about women, whether they look up to you or not, whether you find yourself confident around women, whether you find yourself being able to lead men and women. If you have any questions that have come up from that, please share them, bring them forward. Or any reflections as I was sharing. How are you doing? Do you find that you've got, I wasn't making questions. Do you find that you have women around you? Do you find that you've got women friends? Do you find that they come to you for security? So one of the things that I've genuinely find is that, I have gatherings here and I'll often have one or two women under my arm. This isn't a boastful remark. This is an honest remark. And the women reflecting back, well, it feels so safe to be in your arms. It feels great to be in the connection with you. And so I find some men just have a natural way of communicating where women feel safe around you. You know, they feel like they want to lean into you. It's because they don't feel, one, that you're trying to take, because men who typically want to take, it's because it's coming from a place of self-denial, something that they deny within themselves, and that's what they're trying to reach for. Whether it's status, whether it's acceptance, whether it's love, acknowledgement, appreciation, they hold it within themselves so that they no longer need to reach for it in the reflections in what they have um, around them. Hang on a minute. I'm just going to move my. There we go. So, yeah, any other comments before I go into the coaching part of this call? Comments, questions? Nope. All right. So we're going to move into the next component, which basically is, let's make this focused on women. Who is having a challenge with women in some capacity that they'd like to work on in this call, and would like a take? So you'd need to express, what's the challenge that you're facing right now, and is open to a potential subconscious realignment. If you want, just quickly type in the chat, and then or raise your hand, and then I'll jump into a session with you. 50-50, Carl. Anyone else? Type it in the chat or raise your hand. Guys are so committed this morning. You're just like, all right, Carl. The only even gesture I got was from you. So Carl, looks like you're the lucky strike in this one.
And I only did the kind of the wavy hand because it's less that I'm having a problem and more that at this point in my life, I finally feel confident and comfortable to kind of start putting myself back out there and say, I feel like I am ready to, accept, look for, be open to a healthy relationship again. I mean, my last breakup was September 2016. So yeah, nearly 9 years ago now. And it has been an interesting journey ever since then. And obviously, in that time dealing with the self-worth, self-doubt, the whole process, that was also around the time when I began to experience, if you want to call it my spiritual awakening, or, really beginning to see the truth about the world and the way it is. So that sent me into a major spiral for a while. And I just finally feel like I am in a better, more grounded place now to say, all right, I have a good idea of who I am, what I'm doing, where I'm going, what I'm looking for. And I am in a better place to be in a healthy relationship where I won't be acting from a place of subconscious programming or being wounded. Just because enough time has passed, I've done the work, I feel ready.
So this is an interesting point. So much of our interactions with women are based on a presupposition, as an example, that women are the prize. So all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, I've got something that I could lose, or I can't fuck this up. There was a tipping point for me when I realized I was the prize. When I truly realized that I was a rare man. And it's not an arrogant sense. A man who has purpose, a man who's made financial success, a man who's committed, he's on the path, done a lot of self, deep inner work, worked on himself in the way that I relate to women. I'm like, one of the actual tipping points, and I've had many, but one of the big ones was, when they had that female delusion calculator. And they're like, how many men exist as this? And I was like 0.003% or something ridiculously small. Right. And I was like, wow, I'm truly a unique and rare man. And it was like, why I'm sharing this, again, it's not an arrogant statement. It's what I'm really trying to convey to you is, when you do become a man who's committed to becoming extraordinary, when you do start to work on yourself physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, you are the rare exception. You are not a common man. And I don't mean that there's not other good men that have different elements. If you're truly willing to do the work and build yourself up into a high value man, you are the rare exception. And what's interesting is the moment that you see yourself as the prize, right? Once you see yourself as the prize, the way you relate to women will be completely different because you'll switch to qualifying women instead of trying to conform to women. Just I'll land that again. When you start to recognize your value and you have your connection to your path and purpose, you'll start to qualify women to fit within your life and your trajectory rather than trying to conform to a woman's preference. You'll say, my preference is good. You'll be less likely to, when you get feedback, to take it personally and try to change what you're doing. You just go, yeah, I could possibly improve in that. I'll look at it. But you're not going to say, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? And you won't take it personally if she's giving feedback. You're like, yeah, I probably could work in that area. I'll take it to my men's circle. But you won't become defensive. You're like, thanks for the feedback. You just let it roll, right? But if she becomes disrespectful, she starts nitpicking, she starts looking for faults, you just say, hey, I just noticed that a lot of our interactions, I find you looking for faults in me. What's up? What's up right now? What do you need? There's no trigger around it. There's no issue around it. So what I've noticed is when you start to just value yourself, you'll acknowledge you have faults. You'll acknowledge you'll have imperfections. You're just not ruled by them. You're not trying to avoid them. You're not trying to keep them hidden. You're like, yeah, I fuck up in those ways, and I still love myself. You've basically overcome a lot of the shame that most people try to bury, repress, hide, and avoid, and hope people don't see, which then gets subcommunicated through every aspect of your communication. When you know you've got confidence because you've got lots of options, you don't really care so much when you walk up to a girl and she's rude or not interested in you. You're like, well, thanks for saving me some time. Because you've already got girls cuddling you on the couch. You've already got women around you. And because you're qualifying them, you don't automatically associate a woman's interest with, oh, I'm going to have sex with them, or they get to have a lot of time with me. Think of it. A very attractive woman has a lot of options, so she starts to filter. She starts to qualify. That's the way she relates to men. A very attractive man has a lot of options, so he starts to filter. He starts to qualify. When an attractive woman, so usually there's a tipping point where 80% of the women try to compete over 20% of the men. If that's what happens, and you're in the 20%, you literally are the prize. You literally have an abundance of choice. And so then it comes down to, well, will this woman be complementary to my life and purpose or not? Now, another big thing, this is probably a pretty deeply deep thing I'm about to share with you guys, but it was another awareness of my value and how I'd been giving away my value so much when I was having sex with women, like in a large quantity. I'm not going to mention numbers in this video. But let's just say I did a peyote ceremony and they gave me a stick. And then I started to tie a piece of red thread for each woman that I'd had sex with. And I was there for some time. I'll say that much. And at the end of it, I'm like, do I really think that less of my seed? Do I really think that less of the privilege it is to be with me as a man? That's what my awareness and haha is like, wow. Because in the moment, you're like, oh, I'm horny, I have a need, and you're not really valuing yourself. You're just trying to fulfill something inside of yourself, whether it's you're not feeling good about yourself, you're not feeling confident, you're not feeling it. Some people do this with food, some people do it with sex, some people do it with porn, some people do it with drugs. It's trying to feel something within yourself that doesn't feel totally good with yourself. And this is where I'm saying back to that existential kink thing. Well, find pleasure even in what doesn't feel good, so you don't have to reach for something to try and give it to you. Find that pleasure within yourself, whether it's struggle, whether it's pain. It's like, oh, could I enjoy that? Maybe. And this is the awareness: is we often reach for the things to get around what's present and what's alive in us. We try to constantly feel good. What's interesting is when we try to turn the contrast up on focusing on only what's good, there's a greater contrast with what's not good, what's not resolved. So we have this, well, this is good, but wow, what I'm avoiding is getting bigger. Whereas if we just meet the pain, the resistance, the struggle that is present, then it makes more space for what's good. If you think of another way, energy is energy less obstruction equals total energy. So it does, even if you're creating more energy, but it's matched with more obstruction, then you don't get to experience more energy. It's when you reduce the obstruction that you get to experience more energy. So we've got to focus not just on the good, but also on you know, letting go of the obstructions to what's there. All right. Was that useful? Good way. Next, I invite you to go have an interaction with a woman, see what comes up for you. See if you have attachment. When you feel the nerves coming up, and it's part of that's a primal thing, but when you feel the nerves coming up, often it's like you feel like you're risking something. Maybe it's your status, your identity. Maybe you think there's, some element of your confidence. What is it that's truly at risk? And try to find enjoyment, perhaps even in, oh, look, and call it out. Oh, wow, I'm getting really nervous. Apparently, I think you're really hot. Make me all goofy and nervous and stuff like that. So, but that's going to be probably better in a real life situation than trying to pretend it doesn't exist and avoid it. You know what I mean? Because then it even has, that's kind of what I'm pointing to it. It has even more weight. All right, what's the next question? I have options, but have a tendency to put a woman first and overlook, confuse my own preference and mission. Overly attuned, rescuing, slowing my path down. I'm choosing to remove this and understanding, commune with a partner without losing that selfhood, clarity, and frame. So this is a big part. This is actually one of the things that pushes women away in a way, is self-sacrifice. When we operate from the frame, and this is so crazy, but it's like I can see how it happens, that men associate providership with sacrifice of self. That's something like the equivalent to a farmer, and I'll just take the pin away from you, Carl. That's something equivalent to like the farmer giving away his seed crop rather than planting and producing more crop, right? So this game and I fucked up there as well. So out of integrity, I'm literally at this point in time, I had no money, literally, but I had a credit card. And what did I do? I spent every dollar on my credit card to try and make this woman happy. What does that do? Causes her to respect me, take the complimentary free travel and meals, and have even less respect for me. So that doesn't work. The more thing would be, this is what I can manage. This is what I can budget right now. It's not going to cause me harm and ultimately you harm. You just own what you are, because society is placing expectations that men have to try and conform to, because women are adopting those things. Oh, if a man doesn't earn $200,000 a year or more, if he doesn't drive around in a Ferrari or Mercedes or something like that, if he doesn't have a penthouse apartment, if he isn't buying me Gucci handbags, if he isn't traveling around there, it's not reality. What's presented as the mainstream is not real. It's not mainstream. It's not most people. It's a selective audience inside a social setting which is trying to project the perfect life for the selling of their courses or their programs or something like that, right? So be authentic to what you can manage. I mean, I am advocating making more money. I am advocating becoming a successful high value man, but I'm also saying don't sacrifice yourself on that path. Be realistic with where you're at, and don't feel you need to compensate in some way. It'll actually work against you. This is another telltale sign. I was with a woman, this is in Tulum, and she was very into me. I was undecided about her. She could feel that. We had great sex. I invested very little in her by and large. There was another man that was in Tulum that dated her. He bought everything for her. He did everything for her. So he paid her way, paid her travel, paid her rent, did everything. And lent her money, did everything. She ended up cheating on him. When she cheated on him, she blamed him and said, you should talk to Nathan. He knows more about being a man than what you do. Do you understand that when a woman does not respectful, not saying every woman, but many women, when they don't, when they no longer respect you, they have this resentment that starts to build, which they feel because they feel it emotionally, it justifies actions to then be disrespectful to you. Your own disrespect of yourself earns a reflection of disrespect from her. This is what I'm saying. Respect your budgets, respect your money. She's probably going to be more attracted to you than you investing in all this other stuff that won't actually turn her on and bring her closer to you. I fucked up there as well. Why don't you buy me, do nice things for me all the time? Oh, okay. So then I start doing all these nice things. And I'm not saying don't do nice things. I'm saying do nice things because you want to do them, not because she's demanding them from you. So I started to conform to her frame. I started to do all these nice things, thinking that was the good guy. No, do things because you feel you're generous, because you feel good in yourself, because you want to do that, because you're really appreciative of the way the woman is being a constructive contributor to your life, not because she's entitled and demanding of it. There's a difference. Why you do something is just important as a motivator. You know, the reason behind why you do something's a very, very important part. If you're an abundant, generous man, that's the ideal situation. If you don't have that financial abundance to be able to do all the stuff, then don't do it. Be honest and integrous with yourself. Don't feel you need to compensate for some lack of value by buying her attention. That's what you're doing. She's not respecting you. You're just buying her attention, which means it's going to have a short-term level of loyalty. Hold your frame even when you're in growth. There's another comment here. Overwhelmed with everyone relying on me, I become distant and it spills over into my personal view of myself. I tend to push away my girl away, frustrating to her. Everyone relying on you. What it actually tells me is different to what you've written. It tells me you're not taking care of yourself as a priority. When we are not, one, acknowledged for our contributions, when we're not rewarding and acknowledging ourselves, our service starts to get marred. We start to become resentful of being a provider. So when we're not appreciated and when it's like a mental thing. When we're doing more, creating more, and they're not experiencing any benefit from creating more and doing more, then we start to reject having to do more. If we do more and then earn more, have more reward coming to us from doing more, it's nourishment. It's like the tree that becomes abundant and drops this nourishment back to the soil, and then it's a cycle that continues. If there's only energy going out and not coming back, we will become resentful. But this is also why I said the very first thing we need to do as a man each day is take care of ourselves before we take care of our family, before we take care of our children, our wife. Take care of ourselves first. It's like reach for the oxygen mask for yourself first. Otherwise, it's not sustainable. This was a big aha for me. What do you notice in most of the animal kingdom? The alpha, the dominant leader, is one of the best taken care of. What is most of society say? That it's noble and honorable to sacrifice yourself. That's complete bullshit, and it's short-term strategy. When you take care of yourself, you get the rest you need, you're going to produce more. When you have time to invest in your physical, emotional, spiritual, mental needs, you're going to produce more. Another one is sex. So when sex is just like, oh, when a woman feels like it, and it's like uh she does it occasionally when it's performative, when I do what she wants to, what she breeding, a compliant man. When you're like, listen, I'm a sexual creature. Sexual interactions with women is how I bond. I'm looking for a woman who not just appreciates me for my contributions of my money, from my, bringing order to chaos. I'm wanting a woman who loves to pour her love, her sexual energy and devotion into me. That's kind of woman I want to be with. And I'm not controlling you and saying you have to have sex with me. I'm just saying, that's just the type of woman that I want to be with. So we might not be compatible with each other. Now, the reality is, if she hasn't got sexual shame or trauma, a woman who's really into you is going to want to have sex with you and will be turned on by you continuously. And there is a way If you are holding yourself in integrity, if you're holding polarity, if you have masculine frame, she will always be turned on by you. When she starts to feel that she's coming back to the original topic, that she's above you and she loses respect, then she loses all turn on for you. So I'm not saying there's not a responsibility for you to be the type of man that turns women on. It is by your authority, by your status, by your standing, by your respect, by yourself, the respect you hold for yourself and the way you expect people to relate to you and the tension you're able to hold without trying to, crash into her reality or, not have conflict. Sometimes a woman will create conflict just to see how you respond. And if you become all compliant, she's going to lose respect for you. It's actually a shit test to see if she can trust you to hold your own frame. So there's elements to it. So I'm always placing responsibility in the man for the experience by not tolerating disrespectful behavior, but also asking for what you need. I really love having sex with you, and I need, this is a core need for me. What is it that I need to do within my own reality that I become the man that attracts that from her? You just asking a woman for sex is probably not going to be met with the result you want. Women are emotional creatures. It's based on how they feel towards you, which is going to be deciding how much sex she wants to give you. Okay? When she feels held, respected, when you're not a pushover, when you're not easily manipulated, when you've got path and purpose, when she knows that you could leave her. This is another thing, unfortunately. When a woman knows that you've got other options, when a woman knows that that women are attracted to you, she is going to be more sexual with you because she knows that. So it can't be, I'm loyal at no cost. I'm loyal because I'm a committed and a loyal man. But if I start to feel that there's not a reciprocity, a natural, healthy reciprocity, then I value myself too much to be in this relationship. She'll feel that. So this is the most important point. The mistake I made, which has caused us to me have less sex and to have my first failed engagement, was because I became compliant in some capacity. We went from having a lot of sex to having very little. We slept in separate beds and we're barely with each other anymore. But because I was loyal and committed and engaged, I was willing to tolerate increasing disrespect. And I'm saying that's not right. Stand for yourself. What you'll tolerate from another doesn't matter if they're in a relationship with you or not. Doesn't matter if they're the mother of your child or not. If they're disrespectful and dishonorable, they do not deserve to be in your life. And it doesn't mean that you don't invite correction. No, you invite correction, but you set clear boundaries in the way that you want to be treated or what type of behavior you'll tolerate. And then you honor, invest in, nourish the feminine who's complementary to your life. So this is not an oppositional relationship to the feminine. It's just understanding part of the way feminine psychology is. And the more you know, the more it's an act of will or love to realize, well, okay, sometimes, because there's a current thing in society that women do not need to do any healing work when it relates to the masculine. It's not true. In the same way that men have to heal themselves and heal their relationship to the feminine, women need to heal themselves and heal their relationship to the masculine. There's a mutual reciprocity that's required. When it's only on one side, men are at fault. Whilst I take full responsibility that men create their own reality, that also includes what women you allow into your life. Right? So that's why it's so important to choose a woman that's constructive to your path and purpose in life, and why it's important to do the subconscious work so you're not choosing women that come in and sabotage your reality. Any other questions? Well, it seems that there was no breakthrough session. This has been the second. It's available. So if any of you got some personal challenges coming up, then, that's available in these calls as well.
What about that theme of programming ourselves so we attract a healthy woman who will lift us up, amplify our power instead of depleting, draining us? How do we really anchor that
You
programming?
know, amazing. We shift from associating our sexual partners with how our mum behaves. Super important point. Most men, their primary example of what a woman is taught by their mother, not their father. So when you relate to women in a way that they're not sexual creatures, they're like your mum in some capacity, love and affection, devotion, that's a mistake. If you frame them as your mum in the way that women is. A woman, once you realize a woman is very sexual, and the way that you relate to a woman is completely different to the way that you relate to a mum. The way you thrive with your mum is you become a compliant, nice guy. The way that you relate to a woman is you become the daddy to the daughter, effectively. So when the daughter says, "Oh, daddy, can I have this?" You're like, "Not now, honey." You're just like, or you might say, you might buy her a toy, but it's your decision. If you could just relate to, obviously not in a sexual way, but in a way that a father relates to a daughter. He takes care of her, he protects her, he defends her, he provides for her, those elements. Obviously, when you're with an actual partner, a romantic partner, then there's different qualities with a sexual relationship. But the essence of the dynamic is one of leadership from father. What behavior isn't tolerated, what behavior is tolerated. There's affection, but there's a deep longevity and presence of that because the inner girl in her wants that. Every girl, because very few women especially have been raised by a healthy fatherly presence. So she probably won't trust it as well until she can. And that's part of the healing journey. This is a huge part, which I probably haven't talked enough about it. Your presence isn't to try and save women. You want to find a woman who is constructive to your path and purpose, but you do want to bring all your gifts to the table that will create greater well-being in her world. Right? It doesn't mean creating a coaching relationship. It's through your presence. It's through being. It's more about your beingness, your presence, your energy that you radiate is one of stability, strength, clarity, direction. Because in a world of chaos, and feminine live in perpetual cycles of chaos and high emotionality, you're this enduring bedrock of strength because you're taking care of yourself. You've got a groundedness, and you're not conforming or compliant or sacrificing to her reality. She does not want to lead you. She wants you to lead her. And this another thing is, Luke, which we've talked about a little bit before, is the integration of darkness. That's the little boy relating to a mother, as opposed to the man relating to his primal nature in the wild, to the father, to the dark masculine. What turns on women largely is going to be the dark masculine. What makes them feel, and it depends on their cycles and which part of the month they're in. But when they're ovulating, they want dark masculine. They want that strength. And when they're in their period phase and they're all like pained up and shit, then they want the softness, typically. Right? But they need the presence of the dark masculine. And the presence of the dark masculine doesn't tolerate bullshit, doesn't tolerate dishonor. It's just like calls it, directs, penetrates, and he doesn't allow these sort of modalities with the feminine somehow controlling or leading him.
Yeah. That might be a something. Is there any block around that we can remove to integrate the dark masculine?
Yeah, you're on the path, dude, but you were like king of Mr. Super Spiritual Light Guy when I met you. Almost with loving affection. Almost the point that I was gagging.
Yeah.
Like, ugh. And you had such a beautiful big heart, but you had completely disassociated from your darkness.
Yeah.
The darkness is your primal nature, is a killer nature, is all that sort of stuff. And then remember, you ignited it, but then it's like, oh shit, I can't control it now. All right. And then there's an integration over time. The darkness really is the willingness to cut the feminine. This is another important part. Most guys raised by their mums and loved by their mums would never cut the feminine. And when I mean to cut the feminine, I don't mean to physically harm a feminine. When I say cut the feminine, I mean cut her mid-sentence if she's being disrespectful. Means penetrate her in a way which with discipline that says, that's not okay. Stop this right now. That's cutting. That's what I mean by cutting. Whereas a nice guy will never do that because he fears that if he disciplines her, she might run away, or if she becomes emotionally, even more emotionally heightened that he can't come it. And when you cut, you're not doing it to inflict pain. You're doing it with love, to bring order, to bring harmony, to bring stillness. And it's like walking into a rowdy room where everyone's hitting each other with pillows, but not in a fun way, in a way that starts to break the shit around you. You're like, oh, I had enough. Yes, it was fun for a moment. We're done. No more. That energy of cutting, of directedness, is something that honestly you'll develop a lot more when you come to my retreats, which I don't think anyone in this circle has been to my retreats. But it's that energy of confrontation that's done in a loving way. And when a man can tap into it, it's not about him yelling or screaming. He just reaches that point where he's like, enough. And you're like, okay. It's like if you push a friend, you can push him again and push him again until he reacts. He's like, enough. And you're like, okay, there's a finality to it. Here's the next thing, which no one speaks about. Part of the dark primal masculine is owning your fuck, owning your sex. Most men desire to fuck a woman, but they completely dismiss or deny it about themselves. Whereas if you just own it, you don't need to broadcast it in a repressed, leaky way, which is what most men do. I'll own if I'm aroused next to a woman, I'm just going to own it and sit with it. If I'm with a boner, I'm like, well, someone's happy about you being around. It's just like, it is what it is. It's just there. Whereas if you're repressing your sex, you're just owning a part of yourself, she'll trust you less. You own that sexuality, she'll be turned on by you. When she's frustrated, she's not feeling your sexual penetrative energy. She takes it out on you, or she seeks compensation. She's not aroused. She doesn't feel penetrated by you, dominated by you. It's super important for you to be connected to your primal energy, because when you do, that penetrative presence typically brings calm. It brings sexual arousal to her. When a man's in, and this is another thing I talked about with you, when your energy's up in your head and in your heart, and this is the cycle you're at, you don't complete the full totality of all of your presence. You're in your emotionality and you're in your head most of the time. Bringing yourself down into grounded masculine penetrative power restores order, penetrates chaos, turns her on, creates polarity, and she goes from being frustrated and demanding and saying all the things that you're not doing for her into her just being excited and like, turned on. So that's why I think a big part of it's the energy that you hold yourself in, which is if you're stressed, overwhelmed, pressed on by life, taking on more suffering, you're all more than likely you're not penetrating life. You're getting knocked around by life, right? You're not meeting and penetrating that which is being pressed on you. Back to the original conversation introduced in the start of this topic. You're not feeling resourced because you're avoiding a whole bunch of stuff. When you just penetrate and meet, it just dissolves. And so it's connected to that dark primal masculine, which is where, again, morning practices of fire breath, of different things, testicular massage, testicular breathing, all this stuff brings you down into your penetrative energy, which brings you into grounded stillness. Another one's I just amplify myself in my sexual energy, in my presence when I'm around women. I'm just like, I don't try to reach for them. I just become magnetic. It's a natural, automatic influence on the room. And the more you're connected to that, the more you just have that presence that women just feel in a nice way, connected to. Because you're owning something, not avoiding. Most men are avoiding and denying the shame they have in their sexuality, in their masculinity, because they're bought into societal shame around masculinity. They're denying they had to deny their sexuality in front of their mums, so they do the same thing with women, this sort of thing. Owning your sexuality doesn't mean you have to flaunt it and try and poke your dick at everyone. It's an energetic acceptance in your own field of that polarity, and you just own it. It's not performative. It's an integrated part of yourself, of your primal nature, your sexual nature. Hopefully I answered some of the question there.
Yeah, thank you, brother.
Yeah. Any
I
final
think
questions?
I might know the answer to this, or I feel like I could know the answer, but with regard to what you said about being the leader in the relationship and, being the one to guide and make decisions, how do you balance that with listening to the intuitive faculties of the feminine? Because I know obviously there are men who have strong intuition and all that good stuff, but I have found and do believe that many women have a naturally, they take to that intuition more more naturally. So how do you balance being the leader while not trying to override genuine intuition when a woman tries to tell you something that could literally save your life?
So think about a counsel. A good man will seek counsel from men and women. If his only source of information is from the woman beside him, then he hasn't got a good representation in his counsel. If it's a company that has a board of directors, he's going to seek counsel from a number of different people. So my general sense would be you're still the authority, you're still the boss, the decision maker. And if you wanted to make the best decisions, you would need to still be aware of your blind spots. You'd need to know what are the motivations and interests of your staff or the people you're leading, right? But you still make the final decision, but you seek counsel. So you consider it. And then, so I'm still learning. I was going to say when I was learning to be a good leader. No, I'm very much still learning. One of the things that one of these guys said to me, he said, and I had mainly women that had invested in my community and other things. He said, always just tell them, no matter what they say, oh, thanks for the input. I'll consider it. Most of the time, women just want to be heard and not to automatically have their ideas rejected. He said, even if you already have that decision made in your mind, come back to them a day or two later and you say, look, I had a chance to consider it, do it. And this is why I think this is the best reason. It's maybe not what you're going to want to hear. It's maybe what you like, but I've considered it. And for our best outcome long term is when we do this. That's my decision. Now, whether she likes the decision, doesn't like the decision, at the end of the day, you've considered her. She's had a voice, and you've made a true, integrous, and aligned decision for what you believe to be will be in your best, highest interest. So the answer is what most men do is that turns into taking orders. And there's a risk for that. Or they think because it's like a motherly love, oh, she says she wants this, she says she wants this. You start to give her everything. A woman will become dissatisfied with that very quickly, even when you're giving her everything that she says that she wants. Because what she really wants is really what's behind. It's the hidden need. Why is she asking for that? Maybe she wants attention. Maybe she wants to be acknowledged. Maybe she doesn't feel heard. Maybe she's got some subconscious need to control. It's our job to go, well, this is what I believe to be in the best interest. Thanks for your input. I'll consider it. This is, and then just make a decision. So I see them more as you part of a council, of which you may probably need some other people inside your council. That's why men's circles are important. Having brothers is important.
That makes sense. That's more or less what I thought it would be. I appreciate the what's the word I'm looking for? Confirmation.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. All right, we're going to wrap it up here. Thank you so much for being part of this circle. And yeah, I hope you're getting value from it. I really love these conversations. It also helps to reinforce, awarenesses that I have and reflect it back to my own life. So thanks, man. I appreciate you showing up, for doing the work. Really appreciate you all. Wishing you a fantastic day. And just one of the parting comment would be, notice what's uncomfortable in your life, and instead of avoiding or strategizing around it, be willing to feel it and meet it. And then notice that if it's something that's been with you a long time, notice that you're choosing it for some reason. You're choosing it. And if it's struggle, if it's resentment, if it's avoidance, if it's pain, if it's whatever, just notice you're choosing to get curious, feel it, meet it, right? And then approach it if you can from penetrative energy, not just from your head. Try and meet with the field with the depths of your penetrative energy, and just see if you're not resisting it. See if you can find enjoyment with it. See if that's part of the path of when you're standing, for instance, on nail boards, is to smile and to meet the intensity, meet the overwhelm, to know you've already beaten it. Have a fantastic afternoon, gents. See you in the next call.